Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm very excited to kick off my VGC 2015 individual Pokemon analysis series. In these videos, I'm basically going to cover a single Pokemon popular in the VGC 2015 format and tell you everything you need to know about the Pokemon. What makes it so good in VGC, popular movesets and items, partners that are often used with it, counters that are often used to beat it, and an overall analysis on the Pokemon. My hope is that by the end of the video you have a better understanding of these Pokemon, and whether you're new to VGC or a seasoned veteran, I think it'll help both players, especially because you get to see my individual take on all these Pokemon. And these videos do take a while to make and prepare, and I put a lot of time and effort into them, so if you could show your support by leaving feedback in the comments below and liking the video, it really would mean a lot to me. Anyway, to start off the series, we're going to kick it off with Cresselia, which has definitely been one of the most highly requested Pokemon. Even though it's not actually in the top 12 in terms of usage right now, it's still really good. We're going to take a look at its base stats first. It's got 120 in HP, 70 in attack, 120 in defense, 75 in special attack, 130 in special defense, and 85 in speed for an overall base stat total of 600. Now its defenses are obviously absolutely incredible. 120 defense, 120 HP, and 130 special defense is just phenomenal. 85 speed is pretty interesting. As I'll go into the video later, Cresselia tends to be run one of two ways, either with Icy Wind and some speed investment, or Trick Room with 0 speed IV and a minus speed nature. 85 speed allows it so that it can operate really both ways, which is why you often see both moves, not on the same set, but both moves are very common on Cresselia. 75 special attack is mediocre, but with the right special attack investment, you can actually pick up substantial KOs. So, very, very bulky Pokemon, one of the most bulky Pokemon you're going to have to face in VGC 2015. So why use Cresselia in the first place? Well, obviously, like I just said, it's got amazing bulk. It's also got a really good typing. Psychic is solid to counter all those really common fighting types like Hariyama, Hitmontop, etc. It's one of the most difficult Pokemon, if not the most difficult Pokemon to KO in VGC 15 because of its natural bulk, especially if you invest EVs in those stats. It's also an excellent support Pokemon because it gets access to moves like Helping Hand and Trick Room. Of course, it also gets rare moves like Skill Swap, which can be really fun by skill swapping Levitate onto Pokemon, especially like Heatran. It can do substantial damage with attacks like Ice Beam and Psychic, so despite the fact that it is a really good support Pokemon, it can actually do damage too. It's just pretty rare for support Pokemon. You think of other support Pokemon that has been used in VGC in the past, think of like Amoonguss or Gothitelle, and while those are really good at support, they really can't do much damage. Cresselia on the other end can actually do really good damage if you give it the right special attack investment. Cresselia gets access to 3 of the best speed control moves in the game: Trick Room, Icy Wind, and Thunder Wave. Trick Room and Icy Wind are more common, but Thunder Wave is also a really good move, though not as common on Cresselia. But the whole point is Cresselia can basically be built with any team because of how well it supports your team with moves like Speed Control and Helping Hand. It's definitely one of the best Trick Room users, if not, in my opinion, the best Trick Room user, given its natural bulk and ability to attack, and it dominated both VGC 2012 and 2013 when it was allowed, so it was basically one of the best Pokemon in those 2 years. So here's some common Cresselia info you need to know. It's very bulky, as I've already mentioned. It's very difficult to KO without the use of super effective attacks, which is why most teams tend to run Dark or Ghost type attacks really just to beat Cresselia. The EVs are actually split between HP defense, special defense, and special attack, and I'll go into EV spreads later, but you tend to invest a lot in HP, and a lot of people actually like to not nearly maximize, but put a lot into special attack, because its natural bulk is already so great, so it doesn't really need much more investment to survive attacks you're going to want to survive. The most common nature as of right now is Bold, but Sassy, Relax, and Calm are also used a lot. Earlier in VGC 2012 and 2013, we saw Modest used. I actually used it personally, which is really good, but I don't think Offensive Crest is as good this year as it was back in the day. Cresselia tends to have at least one speed control move just because, it's one of the best speed control users. Citrus Berry is by far the most common item, but you also see Rocky Helmet, Leftovers, and Mental Herb as the other top 4 items. And as I mentioned earlier, Offensive Cresselia worked in previous years, and you might run into a few in your time of playing VGC 15, but probably not going to be as common. Back then, it was Expert Belt with the moveset of Icy Wind, Psychic, Grass Knot or Energy Ball, and Signal Beam. So, very diverse move pool in terms of attack, especially with that Expert Belt. And Hidden Power Fire, I did leave that one out. But now that those attacks are slightly nerfed, I'm not sure if we'll be seeing Offensive Cresselia as much. So here's a move pool discussion. Unlike a lot of common Pokemon in VGC, Cresselia doesn't have one standard moveset. It's actually completely dependent on its teammates, basically. For example, if you're in Team Preview and you see a bunch of slow Pokemon with Cresselia, chances are it's going to go for Trick Room. And chances are it has Trick Room instead of Icy Wind or Thunder Wave. It's pretty rare to see both Trick Room and Icy Wind on the same set, mainly because you want Cresselia to go either really slow or mediocrely fast. The top 10 moves used, as you see, they are in order: Helping Hand, Trick Room, Ice Beam, Psychic, Icy Wind, Moonlight, Thunder Wave, Side Shock, Skill Swap, and Sunny Day. If you had to give it one standard moveset, so to speak, it'd probably be Helping Hand, Trick Room, Ice Beam, and Psychic, the first 4 attacks. That's probably the most common set as of right now, but that's not even that common. You can't just assume that, but based off Team Preview, you can get a good sense of whether it's carrying Trick Room or Icy Wind. And Moonlight is pretty common if you see Charizard Y, because of course it gains more health back. Skill Swap and Sunny Day, very common with Heatran, which was popularized by Wolfie Glick in VGC 2012 at the World Championships. But Cresselia gets a lot of other great options. These aren't nearly as common, but you do see Swagger, Safeguard, Protect, Moonblast, HP Fire and Ground, Rest, Energy Ball, Shadow Ball, and Calm Mind. Cresselia does get a very diverse offensive move pool, which is why I mentioned offensive Cresselia earlier on, so it shouldn't come to a surprise if those moves come out, but they're not going to be offensive enough to actually pick up one-hit KOs. But Calm Mind Cresselia was used by a couple of famous players back in 2013, so you might run into that in your time playing VGC 15. So here's a sample set that I've created and I've been using personally. Cresselia, Citrus Berry, obviously, Levitate, level 50, 220 HP, 100 defense, 188 special attack, Relaxed Nature with 0 speed. This is what I use to set up Trick Room of a moveset of Trick Room, Ice Beam, Psychic, and Helping Hand, so the 4 common moves I mentioned earlier. Now you're probably wondering about the EV spread, so I've given you a bunch of really important damage calculations. Right now this is my favorite Cresselia spread because it basically does everything I want it to. The EV spread, 220 HP, was very popular in previous years because it allows you to hit a stat of 223, which minimizes Sandstorm and Hail damage. Of course, those aren't as common, especially since Tyranitar is seeing a decrease in popularity, so you might just want to go max HP. But given the other damage calculations I've got, I really like it. If you add 100 defense to that spread, you can actually survive a Adamant Choice Band knockoff from Bisharp, which is basically one of the most powerful physical type attacks you can get. As you see with the calculation there, it does 82.8% to 98.6%, so it barely misses out on the knockout. So you can imagine if you have a Citrus Berry, you can set up a Trick Room and then use your Trick Room attacker to knock out the Bisharp the following turn. And finally, the rest are in special attack, and this is so that you can one-hit KO, no investment Landorus T. Ice Beam just does enough, to KO 0 HP and 0 special defense Landorus T, so super nice spread. And even with no special defense investment, you might be slightly concerned about that, but I've given you 2 of the most powerful attacks. Modest Specs Hydreigon Dark Pulse only does 92.5% at most. Modest Life Orb Aegislash Blade Shadow Ball, only 92.9%, so no special defense, but because of the natural special defense stat and all the EVs you have in HP, you can basically survive any attack in the format and get substantial damage off as well. So that's why I really currently like this EV spread. In addition, since I did mention earlier that Cresselia run a lot of special attack EVs, as mine did, it should be important to point out that Ice Beam is now a bit weaker than it was in 2012 and 2013. Back in the day, you ran around 180 special attack and that could KO Garchomp, Salamence, and Landorus T. Unfortunately, now it actually can't pick up the KOs on Garchomp and Salamence, and Landorus T's tend to be a bit more bulky, so it's actually very rare to one-hit KO the 4x Ice Speed Pokemon. So as a result, you may want to invest less in special attack and put it more in, the bulk. But the reality is that, like I showed earlier, you already survived most of the attacks, and adding a couple more EVs won't really change it very much, which is why I like running a lot of special attack on Cresselia, because it allows it to actually do damage. Even a stab boosted Psychic is pretty powerful. Both defense and special defense natures work perfectly fine, but Cresselia is able to survive any special attack given the fact that its special defense stat is slightly higher, so that's why we see defense plus defense stats a bit more. If you actually want to run a faster variant, 72 speed EVs with a 31 speed IV allows you to outspeed Garchomp after 1 Icy Wind, and if you bump that up to 120, you can actually outspeed Latios and everything slower than that, which is really nice. Of course, you can put even more if you want to outspeed things like Mega Salamence and Mega Gengar. You will need considerably more, but just things to consider if you want to go with the faster variant. So what are some good partners with Cresselia? Quite frankly, almost everything pairs well with Cresselia because of how well it supports everything. If you have Icy Wind or Trick Room, you support either your mid-tier Pokemon or your slow Pokemon, and then Helping Hand is just a fantastic move for anything, especially Life Orb and Choice users, so you can really pick up one-hit KOs with it. Mega Mawile on Camera and other slow Pokemon, of course, are very supported by Trick Room. But then there are also the bulky fast Pokemon, and these are Pokemon that could be really fast but tend to give up some speed EVs to invest in bulk. A couple of examples are Kangaskhan, Landorus T, and Thundurus, all which you can either see, max speed, or now the more popular versions really are moving towards a lot of HP investment, and yeah. So with those Pokemon, you can get Icy Wind support, which makes it which basically allows it to outspeed everything after an Icy Wind. And then with Helping Hand, since these Pokemon tend to give up some attack EVs as well to put in bulk, you can still pick up KOs with Helping Hand and the attack. Heatran is a very popular partner as well because of the natural synergy. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, Sunny Day and Skill Swap is a pretty common duo if you see the two, which is what Wolfie Glick used at the World Championships in 2012 and finished second with. I actually used the same team at Worlds that year since we built it together, and it's a very threatening duo if you're not properly prepared for it. Heatran is also a really annoying Pokemon to deal with, so make sure you have your ways to beat those two. And Charizard Y is a really popular partner as well because you can Helping Hand it to increase the damage output of Heat Wave, which is already boosted by Stab and Sun. And then Cresselia can Moonlight to heal back everything, even without an item. And Crest doesn't really have many great recovery options. Rest is actually a move I used in 2013, but you do have to give up Citrus Berry for that, and a lot of people don't like giving up Citrus Berry. So how do you beat Cresselia? Despite the fact it's one of the more popular Pokemon, there are actually a lot of great ways to beat it. Steel types and dark types should be your go-tos. Just a couple common ones I've listed: Aegislash, Bisharp, Heatran, Mawile, Scizor, Hydreigon, Tyranitar, Greninja. All of those work very well against it. Knockoff is actually a fantastic move as well because knockoff users, if boosted by Stab, can actually just 2-hit KO it. Even a non-boosted Bisharp knockoff can remove a potential healing item like Citrus Berry, turning attack from a 3-hit KO to a 2-hit KO. So getting rid of its item is pretty good, especially if it's a Citrus Berry. And like I said, Citrus Berry often makes it so Cresselia stays around for a lot longer, but if you are able to remove it, it is really nice. Taunt is a decent move to stop it from setting up Trick Room and using its other support moves. Pokemon that aren't weak to Psychic and Ice type attacks, so just Pokemon like Rotom Wash, which are relatively bulky by themselves. You are going to get into an annoying one-on-one, but the thing is, Cresselia can't do too much with Psychic and Ice Beam unless it's super effective. Psychic does a decent amount, but against other bulky Pokemon, you'll be trading off damage. So if you have two Pokemon that aren't weak to Cresselia's attacks, then Cresselia is actually going to be somewhat dead weight. Strong Mega Evolutions like Kangaskhan and Charizard Y can just brute force attack and knock out Cresselia after a couple turns. And like I mentioned earlier, Cresselia often becomes dead weight if it can't attack and support its partner properly, so try to use this to advantage. Arasho Madi actually did not use Cresselia at the 2013 World Championships despite its popularity because, like he said, he realized there were way too many opportunities where Cresselia was just in the game and helping out its opponent more than him. And he ended up winning the World Championships with it, so it ended up being a very good point. Cresselia is an excellent Pokemon, but if you can trap your opponent in with it and make it basically useless, then it actually is very hard to do much with it, and you're basically forced to switch out, which can allow you to get ahead on the prediction game. So in conclusion, while it's not currently in the top 12 on Battle Spot doubles, which of course follows VGC 15 rules, you're surely going to face Cresselia if you play any VGC 15. If you go to any tournament, play an online tournament, chances are Cresselia is going to be there. So make sure you have ways to KO it, because otherwise it's going to stick around for the entirety of the battle. Even if you don't have super effective attacks, bring Pokemon that are resistant to its attacks like Heatran, which is a really great way to counter Crest, and just keep on attacking it with attacks. Obviously, if it can't do much with Psychic and Ice Beam, like I said, it sometimes becomes dead weight. It is still one of the best support Pokemon, if not the best support Pokemon in the format though, given its diverse move pool and incredible bulk. I think it is slightly weaker than in past years because Aegislash is a thing, Mega Evolutions are stronger, and Knockoff is also an attack that is actually greatly increased in power. And finally, note that its attacks don't do very much unless they are super effective. Don't allow your 4 times Ice weak Pokemon to take Ice Beams, even though it probably won't KO since Ice Beam is slightly nerfed. You still don't want it to do much damage because it is going to almost knock out one of your Pokemon. So if you're using Cresselia, it's an excellent support Pokemon. Just be careful because it can often be trapped into compromising situations, and make sure your team has a way to beat it because it is a fantastic Pokemon. Anyway, that's it for this Cresselia analysis, guys. I hope it give you a better understanding of Cresselia in the VGC 2015 format. I may update it along the way as the VGC metagame kind of develops, but as of right now, this is kind of typical on what you should expect. Anyway, that's it for this analysis, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a like if you did, and I'll see you next time. Peace.